angry.
You told me it was the worst since Bartman in Chicago for you.
Yeah.
That's bad. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls.
Of angry.
We will get to extensive coverage of tonight's national championship game in a moment, but we begin today with the most dramatic moment of the weekend. The Chicago Bears missing a last-second field goal attempt from 43 yards out, which would have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles. Wilbon, you were there, and you texted me. You walked the streets of Chicago after that game forlorn. Do you put all of this on Cody Parkey?
Absolutely. 99% on Cody Parkey, because you have to. It's the kicker's job. 43 yards is automatic. 48 to 51 have become automatic in the last 4 or 5 years. 43 at home, downwind. And I'm sitting there, Tony, and I know the wind's coming south through the north end zone. It's going to help his kick. He barely made the first one in terms of distance, although he says he knew the timeout whistle had been blown, whatever. I get that. Part of me feels for this kid, and I want to have compassion. I know, but
it's a
43-yard kick. Get the kick up. You don't need a line drive. You're not kicking 60. Part of me wants to hug him, and part of me wants an alien ship to come and take him away.
Yeah.
And that's just how. And Robbie Gould, who you know we love more than any kicker.
I texted you in the moment, and I said Robbie Gould would have made that kick.
Well, you know where Robbie Gould was?
In the stands.
Sitting in Soldier Field, because Chicago still is.
So I was trying to contemplate this morning, if we dealt with this thing, did the better team win? And I thought, yeah, the better team won, but if the kick had gone through, I would have said as well the better team won, because that was a tremendous game.
Even game.
I just think, think because of the dramatic nature of how that game was won and lost, we may miss a little bit of Nick Foles, and Nick Foles was spectacular again.
Nick Foles
on the 3rd and 9 goes down to the 1, and then on the 4th down,
win the game.
Sidearm underneath to win the game.
Trubisky was terrific.
Yes, he was.
But look, Tony,
yes,
I told you this last week when people said they gave me some stupid point spread. I told you it was a pick'em game, and it was a pick'em game. It's a pick'em game by that much.
Well, I would have taken the 6.5, as I told you.
I also told you that the winner of this game will go on the road and win whatever.
And you believe that?
I believe the Eagles will go to the Super Bowl.
So you will believe they will beat the Saints?
I believe they will win whatever they need to win. And I believe the Bears would have done that if they had emerged.
I want to give you one statistic that I think is relevant about Foles, who may be out of a job, by the way, because they love Carson Wentz.
He'll get a job somewhere else.
In the postseason, last year and this year, in the postseason, 72% of his passes are completed in the fourth quarter. He's got 3 touchdowns. He's got no picks. He is, I believe, at the moment 7-0 in must-win games in relief of Wentz.
I don't want to hear about him not having a job. By the way, real quickly, the one criticism I might have of Coach Nagy, who was great otherwise, you got to spike the ball after the pass to Robinson toward the sideline. Save the timeout, because you know you can't trust your kicker. No one in the room trusts your kicker, because he's gone doink, 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 doink all season. You got to get him 5 to 7 more yards to get out of his head a kick longer than 40. So you spike, then you save the timeout, which opens up your options for a 5 to 7 yard gain. I am angry still, and now you've got me worked up to start the show.
Good. That's a good sign for us, I think. That's good.
The only 2 teams I even cared about rooting for a weekend were the Bears and the Ravens. So the afternoon was a complete wash for me, starting with the Chargers holding on against Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. 99% of even the most astute fans would have benched Jackson in favor of Joe Flacco at halftime. You would have, right? But
yes,
Jackson did lead the Ravens back and had a chance to win the game before that great defensive play forced that fumble. Tony, John Harbaugh is sticking with his decision. But are you sure, as we look ahead, that Jackson and this brand of football is the way the Ravens can win?
First of all, I had this game and you did not have this game. Second of all, to answer your question, no, I'm not sure, and I'll tell you why. And this is not a knock against Lamar Jackson, who was awful for 3 quarters, and that's when I texted you got to go to Flacco, right? But staying with Jackson worked out because, as you say, he had 2 touchdowns.
Just win the game.
Here's the problem they had. This style of football, when you're behind, you can't get down the field quick enough to win the game.
No margin for error.
It takes 5, 6, and 7 minutes most of the time. So it's not in the modern league. No, and there's no knock on him because he's their quarterback. That's fine, but he's got to become a better passer.
You know what? He's their quarterback until he's not their quarterback. They signed Joe Flacco to $1 billion. He was their quarterback until
this kid came along.
He wasn't.
That's right.
So nobody's a quarterback for longer than about a year.
Well, he'll start next year.
Well, he's going to start, and he's going to finish some games because Flacco said goodbye yesterday.
That's right.
They said goodbye to Flacco, and Flacco said goodbye. And I understand you can't take up all your cap room just with one position. But, Tony, we talk about this with the Eagles. I'm not getting rid of Nick Foles. If I can do something to keep Foles there, I'm going to do it. Guys get hurt. Flacco and Wentz got hurt. They need two quarterbacks. If he had gone to Flacco, maybe he gets down there
Are you
quicker.
Saying they should keep Flacco?
Yeah, if they can.
That's what you think about Baltimore.
Or then get Foles. You need two guys if you're going to play Jackson. Because, Tony, he's going to be like RG3. He's going to get hurt if he keeps running the football like that.
Let me give you what I thought was the key to the game. And it was a tremendous gamble on the part of the Chargers. Their back seven were all DBs.
Yeah.
They took out their linebackers, and as a result of that, they were fast enough to be with Lamar Jackson all the time. And Lamar Jackson, as an inexperienced quarterback, really didn't know where to throw. So they were on him. That was an incredible gamble on the part of the Chargers, who are now 8-1 on the road, Mike. 8-1.
So you mean they weren't handicapped because they had to play at 10 o'clock according to their bodies, which is a theory you were pushing on Friday?
No, not handicapped. Treated shabbily. And it's going to happen again.
What should they have done?
Treated shabbily.
They should put the game in San Diego?
No. Make it the 4 o'clock game.
Stop.
On Saturday night, the Dallas Cowboys finally ended the talk that Jason Garrett would be fired that night by actually beating the Seattle Seahawks, and neither of us had this one. The Seahawks came into the game ranked 30th against the run, and the Cowboys pounded them with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. Wilbon, are we done with the doubting of Prescott and Garrett now?
I didn't doubt Prescott anyway. You and I talked about this yesterday. Dak Prescott is 32-16. He's played 48 games in his 3-year career. He's 32-16. What the hell do people want? He's 1-1 in the playoffs. There's no crime to lose in the playoffs. Did they lose to the Packers?
He had a great opening year, fell back last year, and the Cowboys started slowly.
They were 9-7 was his worst mark.
I'm just saying.
So now, in other words, if you aren't 12-4 every year, they want to bench you? This is stupid. This will be like college football that fires coaches after they go 9-3.
Do you know what happens in the league now?
Close to elite quarterback. He's not there, but he's close.
No, he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback.
Close.
Do you know what happened to Dak Prescott this year? Patrick Mahomes happened. Patrick Mahomes set the bar for every other young quarterback where you go, if you're not up there, you're in trouble.
Patrick Mahomes has to keep playing. Dak Prescott went, 11 or 12 his first year?
I think he's a good quarterback.
Okay, so what are you talking about? So he set the bar, and then he was under the bar.
But we both thought Russell Wilson was a better quarterback and would win this game.
Russell Wilson did it
and he
over
played
a
well.
longer period of time.
Russell Wilson made no mistakes.
Seattle's problem ain't Russell Wilson. And Dallas's problem is not Dak Prescott. Dallas had other problems, including not having a field-stretching wide receiver,
and then they got
the likes of which Jerry Jones didn't sign at the beginning
of the year.
But
then he went and got Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
And that has made, in the way that Golden Tate made a difference
and
yesterday.
Ezekiel Elliott, Tony.
He's a moose. He's tremendous, Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay.
Tremendous.
So Dak Prescott, you know what we're going to do after this show? We don't have time right now. I want to go through and look up how many of your golden boys have gone better than 32-16 in their first 3 years.
Don't attack me, because I like Dak Prescott. I like him in Mississippi
said he was
State.
He took a big step back.
He's good. He's not
really good.
Necessarily great.
He's really
the
good.
Cowboys have not been in a championship game since 1995. That's a long time.
Is that Barry Switzer?
This was a pretty big win, right? This was a pretty big win.
Tony, any win in the playoffs is tremendous. They held off a team that, let's face it, people gave up on, people quit on the Seahawks early. That's a nice win to beat Seattle anywhere, home included. The Cowboys were the only home team to actually win this weekend. The other Texas team, Houston, fell behind 21-0 and could never make it a game.
And I believe I had that, too.
Andrew Luck, who passed for 2 touchdowns, looked like the old Andrew Luck with new and improved protection. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson, who had become one of the most accurate throwers in the league in the second half of the season, was wildly errant at times and looked like a guy making his first playoff start, which he was. Tony, is it that simple, or are we overlooking other elements that could make the Colts a great team?
What was your record this weekend?
Oh,
I was 3-1.
0 for 4.
You were 0-4.
0 for 4.
I just thought I'd mention that.
That's what I was.
On the record. Are we overlooking certain things? Before I get to praising Andrew Luck, because I think he's really great again, I was taken by the fact that the coach of the Houston team with an opportunity to get points, not necessarily touchdown points,
Pass up
but
the field goal,
at least twice. I thought twice in the game he did that. So I don't know how much that came into play in this particular game. But I come here to praise Andrew Luck and the GM. The GM who decided, I don't want to get my quarterback killed by ignoring getting offensive linemen. So I'm going to get some offensive linemen. Because the Andrew Luck story, in June, he was throwing a Nerf ball.
Yeah.
He sat out all of last year, and we made fun of him every single day.
Well, you did.
I did. And now he's throwing. Is it still called the Duke? Is that ball still called the Duke, the NFL? The official
That's what
NFL
it's
ball?
called?
He's throwing. They've won 10 of 11.
Yeah.
They're the hottest team in the league.
Yeah. I'm going to praise some other people. By the way, speaking of praise, let me go back. The Philadelphia Eagles offensive line was brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
From start to finish.
They only sacked them once.
Another element
Bears
of
only
that
sacked
game.
them once.
There's so many great elements of that game because those two teams could be great.
Would you want to go back also to Seattle because they lost
No.
Sebastian Janikowski, and that made
hammy.
then he had the guy who tried for the onside kick had to kick a drop
It
kick
looked
straight
like
up the air.
they brought somebody off a soccer
was
field in Barcelona who didn't know the rules of the game. What
So
was that guy doing?
Are you bored with this game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna praise Marlon Mack.
Yeah, he can play.
Marlon Mack is
can
a
play.
stud.
Yeah.
I heard somebody comparing him over the weekend to Eric Dickerson, which said, well, it made me
Slow
say,
down,
wait a
baby.
minute.
Slow down.
You and I are of an age.
Slow
Eric, you
down.
don't compare people to Eric Dickerson.
No, slow down.
Also, T.Y. Hilton, who seems like he's been around so long, but it's Marvin Harrison to Reggie Wayne to T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton is as reliable as sunrise. And so Oliver, I see how good they are going again.
You're going to do it again.
Andrew Luck has some veteran,
Yes, he does.
reliable weaponry.
He also is a guy who was the overall
receiver.
-- 1 draft pick, and 4 years ago we
Offensive line,
thought
you're
would
right.
be great.
Nobody touches him.
No, and
nobody gets to him.
They,
Nobody gets
with
to
the other
Foles
GM.
either.
They were crushing him. So we are set for next week. In the AFC, we have the Colts at the Chiefs, we have the Chargers at New England, and in the NFC, we have the Cowboys at the Rams, and then the Eagles at the Saints. Wilbon, which home team do you see as the most vulnerable?
Well, I've already gone out and said I thought the Eagles were going to win no matter what they did, so it would make sense that I would feel that New Orleans is, but I don't think New Orleans is vulnerable.
Didn't New Orleans crush them when they played earlier?
Good, that was earlier.
Okay.
I think the Eagles are going to beat New Orleans whether or not they're vulnerable.
Okay.
Vulnerability doesn't matter into this to me. The Chiefs would be my answer. Because the Chiefs, Tony, do you know how, look, I know they're a little off your radar because they're not anywhere near a 95. I've been to Kansas City for those playoff games. I was there for Marty Schottenheimer in the rain against Elway. I've been to so many of those playoff games where, and I know you actually did go to one.
I did.
Where
Joe
Joe
Montana.
Montana. But see, here's what you're missing. The last time Joe Montana, the Kansas City Chiefs won a home playoff game, you were covering the league. It's way back in 1993. They haven't won one in 25 years.
Is that
Tony.
right?
Kansas City.
Andy Reid?
No, Andy Reid and Marty, they would lose these games after going 13-3. It's got to be Kansas City.
This surprises me so much.
Why?
Because I would have thought that you would have stolen my thunder by saying it was the Patriots. Because the Patriots don't look at the moment
like a world beater.
They don't look the way they used to look. And the Chargers, again, 8-1 on the road with no problems. Once again, disrespected, treated shabbily, having to play on our body clocks at 10 in the morning in New England. And by the way, talking about treated shabbily, if you don't think this is a TV show, the early games are both the AFC games. The NFC, we're bringing in the numbers on the ratings.
Games.
Those are the late games.
The powerhouse games.
I think in terms of vulnerability, and I can make a case for every visiting team, but in terms of vulnerability, I do think it's New England this time.
Listen, Tony, first of all, we can do this because there's no weak link in these playoffs.
That's right.
Your 6 seeds are Indy and Philly, I believe. Come on. I mean, we knew those teams are both hot. 5 out of 6 for Philly, and that's only half as hot as Indianapolis.
I can make the case for Dallas on this.
Oh, sure
the Los Angeles Rams allow 5 yards per run. Ezekiel Elliott
go 7.5.
Ezekiel Elliott is a monster.
How many road teams are you willing to sit here, man up, and pick right now?
Oh, it's Monday. No, I'm not doing that now. I'm going
to tell you something.
Not a chance.
I said this going in there yesterday. I'm going to say it coming out. The Bears-Philly winner is going to the Super Bowl. That's what I think. All right. Tony, let's move to the little guys now. The national championship game between Alabama and Clemson kicks off in a couple of hours. It'll be the 4th time these two have played each other in the last 4 years. And it's become as familiar as LeBron versus Golden State. So let's get right to it. Who are you picking and why?
Thank you for making that analogy. because there is the sense of fatigue among people.
Who?
That Clemson, a lot of people out there look at Clemson and Alabama, and they say, I don't know that I want to see this again. If you told me in any of the last 4 years, and we had this discussion, in October, that in June it would be Golden State and it would be Cleveland, I go, gee, do I really want to see that? But when they play, it's great. You really do want to see it when they play, which is exactly how I feel about tonight. You know, that last week, those games were so lopsided, setting up to me the best two teams by a wide margin. I do want to see
the other 4 games are what I'm fatigued with. Not Clemson, Alabama.
Right, I agree.
I'm not fatigued with that. And I'm going to, since you didn't give a pick yet.
Oh, I will.
I'm going to give one right off the bat. I'm going with Clemson. I'm not saying I want Clemson. I'm saying I'm picking
So you're
Clemson.
taking the 5.5.
And I'm picking, I don't care about that.
Really?
I'm picking them. I'm not picking them to cover.
Right.
I'm picking
Outright.
them. Why do we play the game?
To
Coach
win.
Edwards,
To win.
we don't play to cover.
Right. Well,
we play to cover the game. No, we don't play to cover the bet.
Some of us play to cover, but go ahead.
No. Trevor Lawrence is phenomenal. He stands up there on the field and you think, my God, I don't know that I've seen a kid like this as a freshman come in and play quarterback. And then in the post game, his whole presentation, his command to me are alarming. And he's got Trey Higgins at 6'4", and Justin Ross at 6'4", and Hunter Renfrow at less than that. But he's got weapons, and they're going to beat Alabama.
What color is that?
That's Clemson orange.
Yeah, that's exactly what
And you're wearing those Clemson orange pants
pumpkin pants
at the ACC tournament.
Pumpkin pants.
People are walking around like this the whole time.
But I don't have ducks on them or whatever they have at the ACC tournament. So you would think I was going to pick Clemson.
Tiger Paws, what?
On muscle memory, I'm going to pick Alabama.
Oh,
no,
you're gutless.
It's not gutless. If I was Lee Corso, I'd put this on my head, but I'm not going to do that either.
For your head.
So anyway, I'm going to pick him on muscle memory, but I have no particular. The one thing that would surprise me is this:
what? A blowout.
if it was a rout,
Yeah.
if Clemson routed Alabama, that would surprise.
No rout.
Let's take a break. Coming up, we all know about Tua, but what makes Clemson freshman quarterback Trevor Lawrence so effective? We're going to ask David Pollack.
Good. We'll also ask him whether he sees a 5.5-point difference between these two. That's a Kornheiser question. He snuck that in there.
Do you know that the great Jack Vardaman is out there rooting for Alabama? You know that because he's
from
Alabama. Yeah. Let's get back into tonight's national championship game with the man who has guided us through the whole season, our college football sensei, David Pollack. Let's start with this, David. Does it feel to you, because these are the odds right now, does it feel to you that there's a 5.5-point difference between these teams?
No, I would say no, because both these teams now are so used to them. I mean, it's so cool that you got, I know some people don't like it, but you got the big bad bully Bama who's won so many championships, and Nick Saban going for his 6th at Alabama, and he's the greatest coach of all time. But if you look at Clemson, they've played him tough every single year. This is the 3rd time they'll play him in the national championship game. The other 2 games were super close. Alabama won one, Clemson won the other one. So a lot of playmakers, 8 of the top 35 guys in the NFL draft, first round, early second round projections already. So the most talented teams in the country, the 2 best coaches in the country, and every single year it seems like we're setting our watch now, and it's Alabama, Clemson, and it seems like it's going to be a close one.
Well, let's zero in, David, on one of those guys, Tua, whose ankle didn't seem to bother him very much, if at all, against Oklahoma. So whether it's the ankle or anything else, David, do you expect anything out there that he'll struggle with?
Yeah, I guess when you have more touchdown passes than incompletions, you had a pretty good day, and I think it was pretty healthy with 4 touchdowns, 3 incompletions. Listen, he looked great, and I know this surgery is kind of in the new phases of it with the tightrope for a high ankle sprain, but he looked good, and more importantly to me, it was when he got in piles, he didn't curl up and go straight down. He was still churning his legs, so I think he's healthy. He's going to be tested. This will be the best he's been tested all year long. You got 3 or 4 guys up front that can put pressure on the quarterback. They don't have to blitz you to put pressure on. If you blitz to him, he's number 1 in the country in touchdown passes, and he's the best quarterback against the blitz. Venables and company with Clemson, they have a good luxury. They don't have to blitz to get pressure. They can do it with just 3 guys. They can do it with 4 guys, a great defensive line. Now, here's the thing. Can their secondary hold up? Because I'm just telling you, when you watch Clemson's secondary on tape, you can point to a couple of their guys in the back end, especially the safety spot, where if they get matchups on fast wide receivers in the slot, it's not going to go well for Clemson. So I think Tua's going to have a great day.
Let us go to the other side. We have spent a lot of time on this show on Tua. We have not spent nearly as much time on the Clemson freshman quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. you think to yourself, well, he's a freshman. Surely something is weak there. Do you see any particular weakness?
This dude's freaky. Now, he is, he's the most talented kid. I'm just telling you, he's the most talented kid I've ever seen come in as a true freshman. That dude makes 18-yard comebacks look like slants. I mean, he has the physical skill set that is better than any I've ever seen come into the game of college football. 6'4", 6'5", can throw it anywhere you want. The good thing about him is because he started the season, after the first 4 games, he's became the starter. You could tell he's now starting to learn, and mentally he's starting to get it. Can you pressure him and make him make some bad decisions? Yes. Have they seen speed on the back end like Alabama? Absolutely not. So here's the thing. Alabama has a key injury that people aren't talking about enough. Christian Miller, number 47 for them, when he's on the field, their pass rush gets pressure 50% of the time. He gets a hamstring last game. Y'all know when you get a hamstring injury and you can't put any weight on it, I don't care what Alabama says, he's not going to be effective in this ballgame. That's a huge blow. It puts even more pressure on Quinnen Williams on the inside to be that pass rushing specialist. If they don't pressure Lawrence consistently, he will carve Alabama's secondary up. They better find a way to bring more bodies, to bring pressure and get in his face, because if you don't, that dude's got a laser and he's finally starting to understand where to go with the football.
Well, David, of course, there's another Lawrence that Clemson has who's not going to be playing. Dexter Lawrence, who obviously has that PED suspension. What does Clemson miss or perhaps not have because he's not there?
They don't have a 340-pound adult that you put in the middle of your defense. I don't care who else you put in. We can talk about anything you want. He's a guy that eats double teams, and you physically have to literally double team him every single play or he wrecks your game plan. So I'll be interested to see. Alabama, they got a 3-headed committee at running back that they make you make business decision, guys. 215-pound plus, all 3 of these guys, and they run angry the whole game, and they just rotate them and stay fresh, and you got to tackle them over and over and over and over again. And finally, by the end of the game, you watch the secondaries coming up, and they're like, turn that shoulder. I don't really want to hit this guy again. So I think it'll play a bigger role in this game than it did in Notre Dame, just because you had another guy inside with so much size, and he's a first-round draft pick, probably a top 20 pick in the NFL draft, and I think Clemson will miss him just like Alabama's going to miss Christian Miller.
Well, speaking of that, is Alabama's defense then, is it as good as it has been these last few seasons?
Oh, absolutely not. It's definitely, there's plays to be made against Alabama's defense. They don't have the secondary play that they've had, particularly at corner. And in this matchup, if you think about it, Ross, who's coming on for Clemson, 6'4". Higgins, who's played a pivotal role in this year's offense, 6'5". There will be plays to be made, and Trevor Lawrence, I think, will have a lot of success throwing the ball through the air. The pass rush will dictate. Alabama has had a lot of great defensive tackles. They've got the best one I've ever seen from them, and it's not even close with Quinnen Williams. When you watch number 92 tonight, he'll be the best player on the field. You cannot block him, period. He's slippery. He's the slipperiest 300-pound guy you could ever find. I don't know how. He just kind of goes through cracks and makes plays and gets there with bad intentions. So, 92 is definitely a guy to look out for on that defensive front for Alabama. But if they can protect Lawrence will have a big day throwing the football because a lot of youth in the secondary for Alabama.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this then. Which way are you leaning right now?
I'll tell you what, I've picked both teams so far in my head, so I'm right regardless, guys. It really doesn't matter. But I tell you what, the Christian Miller injury really scares me for Alabama, but I feel like the thing with the offense is complete with Alabama. You got those 3 running backs and a great offensive line, and I feel like the weapons, I feel like the secondary for Clemson ends up biting them. And maybe Alabama makes 1 or 2 more plays. But I think, guys, we're looking at 34-31 ball game. 31-28, something like that, high scoring, fun, thank God, because the playoff matchups so far have sucked, and I think we're going to have a great one here tonight to finish the season.
Thank you as always, David. It's a pleasure having you on all year. Really is. Thank you.
Oh, it was awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
ESPN will have more title game coverage coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern on Championship Drive. Let's take a break, but coming up are the Timberwolves smart to part ways with your boy, Tom Thibodeau.
And should Kirby Smart be tempted to leave Georgia to coach the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? No. David Pollack, he doesn't waste time with the hype. He tells you what's great.
But this is what he said.
He tells you what is awful. And I love talking to David.
Take Clemson in the 5.